What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are enjoying the 4-game winning streak that the Dallas Cowboys are on. It is 5 p.m. Central Time on a Tuesday, October 12th, to be specific. But because it is 5 p.m. Central Time on a Tuesday, that means it's time for another Blogging the Boys roundtable here on our YouTube channel. We are live. We will also podcast this conversation for you on the Blogging the Boys podcast network. If you want to listen to it after the fact, subscribe on Apple devices, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. But here with me, live and live in color, Tom Ryle from bloggingtheboys.com, Tony Catalina from bloggingtheboys.com, Dan Rogers from bloggingtheboys.com, Tom on Twitter at Tom Ryle BTB, Tony at Tony_Catalina, Dan at Danny Phantom 24. You can hear all of their beautiful baritone voices on the Blogging the Boys podcast network as well, and hang out with them from time to time here on the YouTube channel. Tom, I go to you, sir. How does 4 wins in a row feel to you?
A little bit unreal after so many years of getting our hopes up and getting them smacked down to see, now really 2-3 weeks of the Cowboys living up to what we were hoping for and in some ways exceeding expectations. This has been, I don't even know how to feel sometimes. It takes me back to those early days of the winning streak when Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott were rookies in 2016. It's just like, wow, how long can this keep going? And there's a lot of reasons to think this could keep going for a while.
Yeah, I certainly agree. We seem to have lost Dan here on the live stream. Maybe he'll be back. We had this issue last week when all of us got together. We had to get back together later Tuesday night. We did 2 live streams actually last week because Jalen Smith was released. So that news broke on Tuesday. Tony, some news breaking just before we jumped on here. Lyle Collins had put in a request for a temporary restraining order against the NFL to try and overturn his 5-game suspension. The suspension, of course, that he has already served 4 games of. Only 1 game left, technically, until Lyle Collins is eligible to return for the Dallas Cowboys. And had he won here, he would have been able to play for the Cowboys on Sunday. Jerry Jones was asked about this on Tuesday morning on 105.3 The Fan and said that as far as he was concerned, Lyle was out for this game. He didn't foresee any circumstances where he would be able to play. That request was officially denied, Tony. So Lyle will not be playing for the Dallas Cowboys officially on Sunday afternoon against the New England Patriots. Is this shocking to you, or did you kind of anticipate this?
I kind of anticipated it, and I didn't really think Lyle Collins's appeal was games based, right? I think he's more trying to get his money right, or whatever that case may be. In the litigation side of that, it was more of a money move. As far as the games being possibly able to play a game early, whatever the case may be, it might have been a cherry on top. But I don't think anybody is surprised. And we only got 1 more game left. Let's get him back for the bye week, and then we'll deploy him out there for the Vikings. So.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to get to today on our roundtable. And if you have anything you want us to talk about, we are your puppets. We are controlled by strings. If you're watching with us live, you can tell us what you want us to talk about, ask questions, obviously participate. This is your show. That's why we do it. And Tom, one thing that I think we need to get to is the Cowboys are undefeated in their last 4 games. They are undefeated since the Friday morning after the loss of the Buccaneers, when Lyle Collins was suspended, when Michael Gallup had the calf strain that knocked him out 3 to 5 weeks. You and I jumped on for an emergency roundtable then. The following week, Randy Gregory was placed into COVID protocol. He's obviously returned. DeMarcus Lawrence broke his foot. Donovan Wilson, who went to the greatest school in the world that knocked off Alabama last weekend, by the way, had the groin issue pop up again. Tyan Secchi had the heat exhaustion. I mean, so a lot of things have happened for the Cowboys, and it felt like that Friday, Tom, like, man, here comes 2020 all over again. And since then, they are undefeated. The depth of this roster has been challenged, and it is really, I think, surpassing expectations is putting it mildly. But this team has a lot of depth that makes you feel like maybe the depth is legit, is awesome, is perfect. I mean, how deep are the Dallas Cowboys, Tom?
It's so deep that it's going to be gut-wrenching when they have to start clearing some roster spaces to bring some of these guys back. Who do you punish for having done such a good job holding things together while all these people were not able to play? I cannot remember seeing a team this loaded since the Jimmy Johnson glory years. And I think it brings up a fact that we're over the moon, and rightly so, for what Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn are doing with the offense and the defense. But man, when you've got these kind of horses to put out there, and then you put a backup in there and they come up with a great performance, and the number 2 guy suddenly plays like the number 1 guy, and it just goes on and on. And even the people that you were hoping for good things from and expecting them from, like Zach Martin and Tyron Smith, are now, according to PFF, the number 2 and number 3 offensive linemen in the whole league. When you've got that kind of talent to put out there, you're going to roll over some teams. And we saw that happen with the Giants, because the Giants, of course, were horribly depleted even coming into the game, and it just got worse for them as it went on. And when you face a situation like that, you should come out with a 3-score win, which is exactly what the Cowboys did. We're just seeing this manifest in a way that we didn't see for the past 20 years, when the Cowboys would have a really great-looking roster on paper and just kind of fizzle when it came to playing the games.
See, Tom, the way I would put that, and the way I've said it on some shows on our network this week, is I don't want to turn this into like disparaging anybody. I don't want to say I don't want to say anything ill about anybody, but Jason Garrett's sort of plan was to impose their will. But Tony, it was okay if all 22 starters are healthy and ready to go, the Cowboys should win. But this is the NFL, right? Like, you're so rarely going to have a perfect week. And so you are going to be tested. You are going to have to adjust. You're going to have to figure things out on the fly. And that's why we've got a comment from Flames King Kid that says, is it depth or coaching or both? And I think that you have to give a lot of credit to this coaching staff. I mean, there's credit to go around. We can give it to players. We can give it to coaches. But that's where things have kind of been lacking. I think that's where the disconnect has been in the past, where this Cowboys team as a whole is able to overcome these hurdles. And I know it didn't necessarily happen last year, but if you lose your starting quarterback, I don't care who your coaches are, you're going to struggle. And so, I mean, it's nice to see, that the package is kind of coming together in an overall sense.
I mean, without a doubt. And if you're kind of looking to see who deserves the most of the credit, I think you're right on the money when you say the coaching staff. I mean, even down to the free agent signings that helped the depth came from Dan Quinn and his guys and people that, Mike McCarthy and those coaches believe in. At the end of the day, I think after all this, it's a real positive thing to be able to weather this storm. Now, we always thought from the beginning that these were winnable football games, but it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to actually do it. And to do it with the players that were viewed as depth or, reserves at the time, they got valuable playing time. I mean, look at the way we viewed some of these rookies on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we knew the offense had this opportunity to be this good, but I think they really kind of scratched the surface. And at the end of the day, when the troops start coming back health-wise, the team is better for it. At the end of the day, the guys that probably without these injuries that wouldn't have gotten these valuable reps are now more seasoned for it. And in return, it's going to be a better thing for them moving forward.
Yeah, Tom. So along that point, I wrote an article today on Tuesday at the site, and Tony Casillas and I talked about this on the 750 on Tuesday, which you can listen to on the Blog on the Boys Podcast Network as well. The theme of Tony and I, not this Tony, different Tony's conversation, was things that we were wrong about. And by that, I mean things we are pleasantly surprised about, things that we're happy to be wrong about when it comes to the Cowboys. And you could argue the main one, I chose him as the cover image for the story, was Terrence Steele, right? Like that's something that, when Lyle Collins was suspended, Tom, it was kick Zach Martin out to right tackle. Some people said kick Connor Williams out to right tackle. Like Connor McGovern was coming off that great week 1 game. And so the Cowboys have believed in certain things and they've stuck to them. But Tony, to your point, 2020 sucked. I mean, in a lot of ways, but for the Cowboys, it was terrible. But Tom, Terrence Steele was an undrafted free agent tackle who got time as a starter, as a rookie. I mean, like that doesn't happen to even undrafted free agent players on special teams, let alone starting at tackle in the NFL. And so I think, I don't at all think or believe it was purposeful, but that is a nice fruit that the Cowboys are kind of, growing or yielding as a result of the negative experience that was 2020. There were some things that were planted that were starting to blossom now.
Yeah, and that's where I think we need to mention another name, and that's Will McClay, because he's the architect of this roster. And we've now seen 2 drafts that have been – it looks like they're going to both just be home runs in multiple places. And, you talked about having been wrong. Yeah, I was one of many that was going, they drafted a linebacker in the first round. Well, turns out that it wasn't so much that they drafted a linebacker. They drafted an outstanding defensive player at multiple positions. And how many of us thought Micah Parsons was not going to be the choice we wanted? And yet here he is, clearly in the mix for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and just a key piece already on the defense and winning individual plays all over the place. And we're just seeing so much. And that goes, Terrence Steele is a case. They picked him as an undrafted free agent, and he's turned out to pay big dividends. They went out and got a bunch of free agents this year that, the Cowboys have not done well in free agency. This may be the best free agency they've had in a long, long time, because, you've got 3 safeties who are playing very well, with Jaron Kearse maybe being the best. Keanu Neal let them walk away from Jalen Smith. So this is just an incredible job of roster building. I think we need to give McClay some praise for his role in finding these people through the draft, through free agency, through finding UDFAs. Just a marvelous job that has led to what looks to be one of the best rosters in the league.
I think that's well said, Tom, and that's why it's fair to buy in. It's fair to believe, as Ninja Nut says, they hit on everyone, and there's credit for everyone, right? There's credit that's due to Will McClay, to Mike McCarthy, to Kellen Moore, to Dan Quinn, to Dak Prescott, to Keanu. I mean, you can go on and on and on and on. Majestic Detail says Hurst and Hooker are starting to play excellent. I did want to bring this up. DJ Dog 31 says, my crystal ball, to your point, Tom, about roster movements, my crystal ball says there will be some mysterious IR designations as players come back to the active roster. Probably so. My crystal ball says the Cowboys will have a handful of 2023 compensatory picks, because a lot of these one-year deals are going to turn into big-time contracts for other players. And, that's the goal, right? Like that's Stephen Jones's like nirvana. It just hasn't always taken hold. And like, that is really what's going to happen. And I also think that people, when we're talking in March, when we have our free agent tracker on the site, people are going to be, no, Keanu Neal signed with the whoever, the Packers, whatever. How could they let him go? It's like, look, dude, they're just going to find another. Like, that's what elite teams do. They're going to use these picks. They're going to move around, etc. Tony, and so we're talking about the Cowboys like an elite team. They have all this depth. They have all this stuff. They got the management. They got the coaching. I mean, they check every box. The title of today's roundtable, we're going to put it to you first, Tony Catalina. Are the Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl contenders?
It's tough to say they're not. At this point in time, the offense is the top 5 offense like we thought we were. And I think many of us are on record saying if this defense was even meddling in the middle of the league, I think they would have a chance to compete against anybody. I think we all thought Trayvon Diggs would be a star in the making. I don't think any of us thought he would be this good. I don't think that anybody thought Jaron Kearse was going to be this big of an impact player. I think we all had high hopes from Micah Parsons, and he's exceeded them as far as I'm concerned. Everything about this team being a Super Bowl contender is just how much better the defense is playing than we initially thought. And like I said, I'm on record saying that if they were anywhere from 16 to 21 in the league, we could win it all. We could play with anybody, and they're better than that. I mean, the numbers are skewed a little bit just in the sense that they get up so big and they play soft coverages in the fourth quarter. So I don't care about that. We went toe to toe with the Super Bowl champions, lost by a game-winning field goal, left some points on the field, and then has taken care of every team we played since. All the games I thought that we should have won, all the games that they should have won, going into the season, we chalked up as possible, more likely than not, W's. They're taking care of business. And I think you guys know just as well as I do, when the Cowboys and the past teams, they just didn't go in and take care of teams that you thought they should have sometimes, right? They made games more competitive they did. And I feel like they had some of that in Carolina. I feel like they had some of that in the Giants. But the difference is how they came out of the second half. And I'm very close, and not to tease it, but how they play this week in New England against the team that is well coached. If they can go up to New England in that condition with that Belichick, that coach, and go ahead and put a dominant or a nice win against them, I'm fully bought in.
Tony, by the way, will be in Foxborough this weekend for the Cowboys game. So if you're going to be there, hit him up on Twitter at Tony_Catalina. You can also DM us on Instagram, and Tony will figure something out as well. Tony's been running our halftime show on our Instagram page. By the way, Tony, a shout out from Clayton Lockhart for you, Tom, and myself. Clayton says, "What it do, guys? You dudes are the bomb." Appreciate it. But so, Tom, Joe Bradley says, put it this way: this defense can make a stop the 2016 defense couldn't. So I'm saying, yes, they are contenders. We offer a number of shows on the Block on the Boys podcast network, and I know I plug it a lot, but it's because it's the bomb as well. And one of our shows on Monday, Cowboys Cast with Bobby Belt, Bobby had me on this week, and Bobby brought this up, that it kind of feels like the Cowboys have taken the 2014 run game and the overall 2016 offensive efficiency and the 2018 defense, and they've kind of put it all together in one team, Tom. And that's, I mean, they've kind of Frankensteined this a little bit, but it's not like preposterous. You know what I mean? Like they're doing it. I mean, it's not silly to say like, oh, they're dominating in every phase of the game. And to Tony's point, and to the point at large, they've played some subpar teams like the Eagles, like the Giants, but you should beat the crap out of them, and that's what they have done. And so it's hard, not like, where is their weakness? I mean, where, because you can't even say like it's roster depth. They've been dealt a number of injuries, and were dealt them. It wasn't like they had all these things happen in training camp and had, you know, like a week to kind of get right. I mean, they've had to adjust on the fly. It's hard. I would answer this question and say it's hard not to be ridiculously impressed by what they've done. So Tom, I mean, do you agree? Like, I mean, we've noted in the past how this team has had offenses that could win a Super Bowl, but now they have the rest. You know, that they've always been weighed down, and that chain has been broken off their ankles, and now they can dance with anybody.
Yeah, and one thing that speaks to it to me is that coming into the season, we thought that the key to the Cowboys' success was going to be the passing game, and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, while still playing very well, have almost become afterthoughts because the running game has just exploded the past few weeks. And the defense is, well, you know, it's the Trayvon Diggs, you know, I'm going to get an interception whenever I want to show. It's remarkable. Yeah, they give up some yardage. As you said, a lot of that is what people would call garbage time if the Cowboys were putting the yards up instead of the opponent. But, you know, they just are doing the things as a complete team. They will hurt you however they need to. You know, whatever you go out and try to stop, they've got the counterweight to come in and go around that. And even teams, I think, you know, surely the Giants were looking to try to slow down the running game, and they didn't come close. The Cowboys still got over 200 yards rushing.
Well, Tom, not to interrupt you, but a tweet of yours 2 weeks ago when the Cowboys played the Panthers, there was a tweet that Matt Rule, you know, said, okay, you know, we need to stop the run when it comes to the Cowboys. And you were like, okay, cool. Matt Rule, you want to do that? Great. I mean, you know, like, and that's it's, I don't know of, maybe Buffalo. Buffalo might be the team that has the horses to kind of run with them in every phase. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, yeah, and if that's true, then, well, that would make the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders now, wouldn't it? Because they would be playing the Bills if it came down to them coming out of the AFC. So, yeah, I think this team right now, you have to look at what they're doing versus what everybody else is doing and say they're a contender. We're even saying things outside of their control kind of play out in their favor, like suddenly the Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes look a little more vulnerable than I think anybody expected them to be. So, you know, you've got things coming down the pike that you might have been worried about a few weeks ago that now you're going like, yeah, okay, I think we might be able to handle that. You know, you try to fight against becoming overconfident, but there's a difference between being overconfident and being realistically confident. And I think what we're seeing is that there's a lot of basis for confidence in what this team is doing. Until they stumble really badly, why should we start to doubt them? And they even showed that they can come out and stumble, you know, give up a couple of turnovers early, kind of sputter a little bit on offense, and still turn around and just run away with the game.
You know, that first half against the Giants, maybe the first quarter, because things did kind of click near the end of the first half. Tony, I think was one of the worst quarters, at least opening quarters, Dak Prescott's ever played. And to Tom's point, it did kind of feel like, at least to me, it kind of felt like Dak was just going through the motions. And you see that often in sports in general. Like Dak just thought, I'll just show up. We'll just beat the Giants. And maybe, it was certainly an emotional day for Dak with the anniversary and things. And so maybe that was a factor. I mean, nobody would blame him if that was the case. But yeah, I mean, they were in a hole. I mean, maybe you could say like in a hole given, relative to where they want to be. And they still came out and, I love this comment from DJ Doc 31. Says the third quarter against the Panthers will be looked at as a pivot point for this team. Announced to everyone we are contenders. And I like that point, Tony. But what I like about it is the third quarter that has become the Cowboys quarter. And before it used to be the fourth quarter, right? Like we've grown accustomed to seeing like, Tony Romo with some magic in the fourth quarter. Dak Prescott kind of willing the team back into it in the fourth quarter. Screw that. Go put up a mountain of points in the third quarter. Like, you know what I mean? Like make it impossible to climb. And that's what they're doing. That's what makes them different is they build their wall and then nobody can overcome it to the point that they've even, been accused of taking the end of games lightly this season. And so that is a stark difference between Cowboys teams of old and who they currently are in 2021.
Without a doubt. And I think the sign of a team that comes out in the third quarter after half is a sign of a smart team. I think it's a sign of a team that is well coached, a team that understands exactly what other teams are looking to do for them. They come in, whether it be Kellen Moore, Dan Quinn, whoever it is, they come out like gangbusters in the third quarter. And it's because they truly understand how these teams are attacking them. It's a sign of a good team. It's one thing to come out in the fourth quarter, get into a hurry up. The defense is playing soft, much like offenses have played against us when we've had big leads, right? It's a little different when you're behind and you're taking what you're getting and you have a potent offense, so you're able to move the ball around. In the third quarter, that's pivotal. I mean, a lot of these instances, they seem to be losing every coin toss, right? I say that like tongue in cheek, but they're starting with the other team getting the ball in the starting the second half. And I remember just saying to myself, like, this first drive will tell us a lot about how this game is going to go for the rest of this game. You know what I mean? Like they come into the second half, they make adjustments. The offense is firing on all cylinders, and that has just been their quarter. And I think one of the viewers mentioned it, like the third quarter is a pivotal point. That game specifically, it just felt like I was dizzy. I was drunk on happiness in the third quarter because it just seemed like everything was going right. And it's just like, this is the sign of a team that we haven't seen like this in a very long time.
That's well said. Tom, you mentioned the running game, and this has been, the conversation has evolved. After the first win of the season, it's Tony Pollard needs to be the featured running back of the Cowboys offense because he played very well. Obviously, whenever you talk about the running back situation with the Cowboys, it inspires a lot of debate because of Zeke Elliott's contract. Again, good for Zeke having gotten that contract. It is what it is. Water under the bridge at this point. We can't change it. There has been legitimate data to support a decline in Zeke Elliott's game in the past. That's, obviously last year, not his best season, even 2019. I do some shows on the SB Nation NFL show, which is a national NFL podcast we do at SB Nation. And one of my co-hosts there, Rob Stats Guerrera, who covers the 49ers for Niners Nation, he was the first person who brought this up to me over the offseason. And I had never really realized this, that Zeke Elliott is generally the man when he has a tried and true normal offseason. You think about 2016 rookie year, normal offseason, superstar. 2017, there's the Willie won't be suspended, back and forth that just even dragged on into the season. Obviously a disappointing year, and he did serve the 6-game suspension. 2018, totally normal offseason, comes back, leads the league in rushing. 2019, very infamously holds out, goes to Cabo, all that stuff. Not a normal offseason, worst year of his career. Last year, obviously the pandemic, COVID, contracts COVID himself, not normal in any way, shape, or form, not a great season. So this year, kind of, back to normal, back to stabilized. And, first couple of games were a little bit slow, but Zeke Elliott, is now at a point, Tom, where people are asking, is he back? Is Zeke Elliott back? He's third in the NFL in rushing through the first 5 games of the year. Tony Pollard is 10th, by the way. Your thoughts on number 21?
I just think how one of the most common memes that we see every year is so-and-so showed up in the best shape of their life. Well, guess what? I think Ezekiel Elliott did show up in the best shape of his football life. And he is, yeah, he's back, all the way back. As long as he doesn't get taken out by a pylon somewhere along the way, I think he is going to have an outstanding year and be a contender at the end of things for the rushing title.
I disagree with that because the Titans are going to force feed Derrick Henry. Like that's all the Titans care about is that rushing title.
That's what I was going to say. That what will keep him from getting the title is going to be a force feeding situation just like that, because the Cowboys don't have to force feed Ezekiel Elliott because of that number 10 ranked rushing guy that they've got named Tony Pollard, who's right there and can take some of the load, which just is going to make Zeke's per play performance better, because Zeke is not going to be having to carry the ball 25 or 30 times a game. They're going to be able to pace him with Pollard coming in, and there not being any letdown. Pollard leads the league in yards per carry, by the way, right now. So, they get Ezekiel Elliott off the field and the defense goes like, oh gosh, now we got to worry about this guy. So, Elliott's back along with the rushing game. And I think we're seeing that you can run effectively in the NFL and be a winner and have a really explosive offense, because Elliott's now had more explosive offensive plays this year than he had all last season, I believe. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Tom, you mentioned yards per carry, and our streaming platform isn't the best or prettiest when it comes to displaying information when we have the big view like this. So apologies for how this looks. But Tony, Zeke Elliott's yard per carry rate through the first 5 games of a season. I tweeted this out earlier on Tuesday. So what you're looking at, if you're listening to this podcast, don't worry, we'll read it out loud for you. But this is his yards per carry through the first 5 games of each season. In 2016, it was 5.01. Great rookie season. Everybody obviously remembers what he was. Next year, dips down 3.74. You will recall, everybody, that he had 8 yards against the Denver Broncos in week 2. That was a really miserable game, which really lowered that. 5.16 in 2018, again, bounces back. 4.54 yards per carry. Again, through the first 5 games of the season in 2019, 4.01 last year. Zeke Elliott, through the first 5 games of this season, has the highest yards per carry that he has ever had through the first 5 games of a season, Tony, with 5.31. What's more is, compared to the 2016 and 2018 seasons, because everybody wants to do that because those are Zeke's most successful campaigns. In 2016, at this point in time, Zeke had 109 carries for 546 yards. In 2018, he had 93 carries for 480 yards. Zeke has 452 yards at the moment, so the lowest of those 3 seasons, but only lower than 2018 by 28 yards. But he only has 85 carries, tied for the fewest that he has ever had through the first 5 games of a season. That is really speaking, Tony, to the overall efficiency that this offense is obtaining through the first 5 games.
Without a doubt, the Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore, they're deploying him in a more sustainable way. They're not hammering him into the offensive line. They're not trying to make him make magic happen. He came in like a man on a mission, right? This offseason was, you could just tell his motivation and how hard he was working. I mean, it was evident. He's not the type of person, at least until this season, to ever put his workouts out there and to be like, look at me. But at the end of the day, he's been working his butt off this year, and it just shows physically. It shows on the field. You can see the things that he was doing in the offseason that translate directly to what he's doing in the football field, like the jump cuts and the way he's moving laterally. As a team, it's just, the efficiency is off the chart, like you said. They're finding a way to make him, his carries be more efficient and, advantageous for this team. Having Tony Pollard, who is, a hell of a back himself, out there doing his thing. It's just been all good. I mean, it's one of those things where I think it was the perfect combination of timing, motivation, scheme. Everything that's been working together is just put us in this position where Ezekiel Elliott is poised. At this point, it's tough to say he's not going to have his best year yet. Even if the numbers don't mean it or show it necessarily with his highest totals, his efficiency is off the charts.
Yeah, he's the best weapon that he's ever been for the offense. And that's not just in the run game or in the pass game. That's his overall contribution to the good of the team, the success of the team is the highest it's ever been through the first 5 games of a season. Tom, I wrote about this at the time. This was late July of this year. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports does a great job covering the NFL on his own podcast, You Pod to Win the Game. Talked about how after his visit to Cowboys camp in Oxnard, where you were at, Tom had all the drinks with the umbrellas in them and all the Hawaiian shirts. Tom had a great time. But Charles talked about how he spoke to somebody and how his takeaway was that the Cowboys were going to be committed to establishing the run, and not in the archaic, you have to establish the run to set up, play action way, just in the way that they wanted to be balanced. They wanted to be able to run in addition to pass. And, I remember ESPN wrote something a few weeks after that, because obviously this is the first season with 17 games in the regular season, about how certain records could fall because there's now an extra regular season game. And they talked about, who could be the first 6,000-yard passer in the NFL. And their number one candidate was Dak Prescott. And the argument was the defense is so bad. They want to throw it. Dak's going to throw it 40, 50 times. Everybody thought, and I think this happens a lot, like people just lean on last year when they make, future NFL predictions. They pick all of the division winners from a year ago. It's how people thought Washington was going to be good again this year. But, obviously that was silly. And that was never the plan. That was never the plan. And even in Charles, there's a discussion that I wrote about. He said, they want to use Tony Pollard. I mean, it is very clearly, Tom, an emphasis, a point of focus for the Cowboys to not establish the run the way that the meme of that sounds, but to be balanced. And I think that in doing so, they have achieved total nirvana on offense where they can do anything they want, as we've mentioned.
Yeah, and before I answer that directly, I just want to say something. RJ, you are a master at pulling numbers out of thin air and getting it up for us to discuss on this podcast. And I hope everybody appreciates how you do that for us. But to Robinson's point, and there's another element that we need to mention, and that's the fact that the offensive line is in as good a shape as we've seen in a long time, even with a backup like Terrence Steele coming in and playing so well. And that has just combined with Elliott coming in and being so ready to go, and with Tony Pollard fulfilling our expectations of him as that guy who could come in as a change of pace, quick hitter, get some breakaway plays. The running game is now providing that basis so that Dak Prescott gets to pick and choose his moments. And
Golden Corral.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw him make, he's laying rest to that old thing about, well, Dak's not going to be able to throw the deep ball this year. And we saw him make 2 beautiful long touchdown passes against the Giants. And he had the long pass earlier to CD Lamb in an earlier game. Yeah, it's all working together. The offensive line working with the running game, working with the pass protection, working with Dak Prescott completing such a high percentage of his passes and throwing passes for first down. I think the Cowboys are second in getting a first down after each play when you total it all together. I can't remember quite how that chart I saw on Twitter earlier today went, but they're just moving the ball so effectively. They're getting touchdowns. They're not having to settle for too many field goals that we've seen in the past. So yeah, this has been great.
First of all, Watsamata, thank you for the super chat. Round of applause here at Blog of the Boys. You are the best. Watsamata, Tony says, while I think good offensive line has helped both Zeke and Pollard, the eye test, the all-knowing eye test, says both of these guys excel at the second level. Totally agree. And I do want to get to that, but very quickly, on the offensive line point, Tony, one of the things I wrote about in saying that I was happy to be wrong about was Tyron Smith. Now, I don't mean to everyone's going to be like, don't jinx it, whatever. But I did not think, and this isn't like a criticism of Tyron Smith, I did not feel like it was supremely likely, is maybe the best way to say it, that he was just going to automatically return to elite form. I mean, he missed most of last year. And so I knew he would be good. I knew he would be better than most options. But Tom, you mentioned that he and Zach Martin are 2 of PFF's top 3 offensive linemen. From a pass blocking perspective, He is the best offensive lineman, according to Pro Football Focus in the NFL. He is the third best tackle when it comes to run blocking in the NFL, according to PFF. So, Tony, I mean, he has come in and just absolutely, totally returned to like Tyron God mode. He's not just good, he's elite again.
Without a doubt. And I think your skepticism is justified. I mean, looking at the history of the NFL and just how it goes, typically when you're talking about necks, stingers, backs, things of that nature, you're more likely right than not that a player is going to see some type of regression, or, it's the beginning of the end. I saw a viewer actually mention that, like, how many times have you seen Tyron Smith smile this year more than ever? And I think it's true. I think he feels better. I think he is healthier as a whole. I think as a whole, like, he just feels more himself. I think a lot of that, in a human element, when you're not feeling yourself and you're hurt and you're fighting through things, it's easy to go and kind of be, go through the motions. But it's been so good as a Cowboys fan, as as a player around him, to see him play at that level, because Tyron Smith is a freak of nature. And like you said, you had your reason to be skeptical, and they're all valid reasons. But what we didn't really think about is how Tyron Smith has always been a freak of nature, and he's always found a way to kind of just, push the envelope as like an athlete, a football player, an offensive lineman, and a future Hall of Famer. So it's, for me, having Tyron Smith back has been one of the most positive, somewhat surprising highlights of this year.
Not to name drop here at Blogging the Boys, but we did have DeMarcus Ware on the podcast network this offseason. Tom, he talked about how he had the same surgery at one point in his career that Tyron Smith did, and how it really alleviated a lot of things. And, you hear stuff like that. And D Ware said that he was optimistic that Tyron was going to play well, that he thought he would. Basically, everything D Ware has touched has turned to gold this year. I mean, on the subject of Tyron and Micah Parsons, obviously. But I want to get back to that point. Let's see, I'll pull the comment back up here about the second level, because obviously here's Watson's comment. What Zeke and Tony are, they're not just, it isn't just like the sea is parting for them, Tom. It's that they get out there, and then that's where Zeke has always excelled. And I don't want to take away from Tony Pollard, but he has always sought out contact and always made it very difficult for defenders to bring him down. And we're seeing that time and time and time again. Again, it's only 5 games, but it's hard not to be over the moon right now.
Yeah. When they get past the line, then it gets kind of scary for the defense, because it's like, are they going to get 5 yards? Are they going to get 10? Are they going to get 15? I mean, we saw Ezekiel Elliott blast off a 40-yard gain this year. How long has it been since we've seen something like that? This is vintage Ezekiel Elliott, which, that's in football terms, because we're talking 5 years ago. But these guys are just, they're doing everything. It's just, the whole situation is whenever you come into a season, you've got all these, well, if this happens, things can go well. And if this happens, they go. All of the ifs have happened. I mean, I can't think of what has gone wrong so far, really. Even the things that we were concerned about, Tyler Biadasz is still, we still hold our breath until Dak Prescott has his hands firmly on the ball every snap.
Sometimes Dak doesn't even get him firmly on the ball, as we learned on Sunday against the Giants.
And let's
not blame Tyler for all of it. It's up.
Yeah, he can still sometimes turn it into a big play. Everybody's been so down on Anthony Brown, which I think we need to slow down on, because when you're playing against a true defensive player of the year candidate on the other side of the field, then maybe you don't look as great. But he's number 2 on the team in interceptions right now. He had the pick 6 that put the exclamation point on the beatdown. So I think we need to back up and understand that Anthony Brown may not be an all-pro superstar cornerback, but he is not the failure in coverage that people seem to think he is. And just like is happening with Trayvon, he is seeing a lot of those yards that people are holding up and saying, oh, look, all the yards he's giving up. That's happening after the Cowboys have a 2-3 score lead, and they are just trying to get to the final gun with the victory and get out of there, and maybe not risk players, play a little bit soft, avoid the collisions, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I feel like we've been a little too harsh with Anthony, and I want to say I'm rather pleased with how he's been playing the past 2 or 3 weeks.
House of Comics, I see your question. We'll get there in just a moment. But before we do, Tony, I wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss Anthony Brown. He is a divisive player. We'll put it that way. When it comes to Cowboys fans, Tom, respect. I think you've had something great to eat today. Maybe maybe you've caught some good moods, some good vibes. Tony, are you buying what Tom is selling, or are you hopeful that Kelvin Joseph shows up and steals the show?
To answer the second part first, yes, I hope Kelvin Joseph is ready to steal the show. But that is, as far as I'm concerned, it's not really an Anthony Brown issue. It's more so look how they drafted this year with these young guys and how they produced. If they continue to hit on this draft like they have with Ochoa Odigizua and Micah Parsons, and just like the way that they've had players be productive early, I'm excited to see Kelvin Joseph. Now, to get back to Anthony Brown, I think he's a victim of a narrative, I would say. I mean, you got to think and understand week 1. He's going against Antonio Brown for majority of it. Like, Antonio Brown, say what you want about the man, the guy can play football flat out. It was a mismatch. And you got Tom Brady, who understands mismatches more than any quarterback who's ever played this football game. And you know what I mean? So for me, isn't it funny how when Anthony Brown doesn't play against Tom Brady, he doesn't play against Antonio Brown, his plays continues to get better. You're not going to play against that level of competition every single week. Now, is he the long-term answer here? I don't think he was ever really the long-term answer. A 6th-round pick out of Purdue, I think he's exceeded expectations at this point. And like I said, he's going against an all-pro on the other side. His teammate Trayvon Diggs is playing an all-world level right now. So to comparatively speak, it's just it's tough for him, Anthony Brown. I think the man is a quality player in this league. Is he a star? No. Is he playing like great football? I wouldn't say he's a great football player. He's playing great football, but he's playing well enough for the situation he's in. And he's a place, it's tough to say, but he's a placeholder right now because we'll see what Kelvin Joseph does. We'll see what the future holds for Nashawn Wright. So I think his days as a whole are numbered, but I think we need to pump the brakes on the negative Anthony Brown talk.
He's a bridge. At the time I was writing for a different site, for InsideTheStar.com. After the 2016 Cowboys draft class, I compared the whole class to a meal. And I talked about how like Ezekiel Elliott was the steak, and it was a really terrible analogy at the time. But I said that Anthony Brown was the toothpick for after dinner. You know what I mean? Like to help kind of clean everything up. And he is. I remember Jonah Tolles, a friend of the show, was upset, was like livid that I called Anthony Brown a toothpick because he was really high on him at the time. So good memories there. A few things on Anthony Brown from our loyal viewers. Donnie King says, I don't always get the hate on Anthony Brown. It's not like he was a 1st rounder to this point. He was a 6th rounder. We expect too much, it seems like, to your point, Tony. Let's see here. There was another one I was trying to get to. AJ with the best point says, when only one person is being called out in our whole defense, that's saying something compared to last year's defense, when obviously everything was terrible in a bunch of different ways. And so, hey, it is what it is. But Scooter Magruder is here. What's up, Scooter? I hope all is well. Maybe you can do a reaction video to watching the Blogging the Boys live stream. Scooter's the man. Everybody check out what he does. Does fantastic Cowboys and otherwise content. But Stephen White says, AB has great work ethic, professional, conservative. With this rush, you will be able to look in more. Definitely, again, there are pros, and I don't mean this as an insult, but he's clearly the least talented or least reliable starter on defense. There has to be a least reliable person, and that's Anthony Brown at this point. But to your point, Tony, he's a bridge to the future. Hopefully that's Kelvin Joseph. We'll see what ultimately that winds up being. But it is what it is. Now, I did want to get to House of M Comics' question. It says, hi, RJ. I think they're talking to you guys too. This is more of a player management question. With Michael Gallup coming back after the bye week, should we rest Amari Cooper for the Vikings game only and start Gallup, Lamb, and Cedric? We are starting to reach a point of hubris, my friends, where we're now we're playing I don't know what the person's name was, but the master in the Truman Show, the guy that runs everything. We're playing that guy. We're just like, we'll just rest Amari. We'll let Amari have the week off. I would say no to this. But I will tell you what, along this subject, Tom, we mentioned it, you and I, when we jumped on for our emergency roundtable after the Lyle Collins suspension, that if the Cowboys could get through the bye week without having to return Michael Gallup, that would be a huge win. And they're going to do that at the very least with a 4-1 record, potentially with a perfect, 5-0 record in that time. And so I think at that point, you would have given Michael Gallup a month and a half to rest up. I think you bring him back, and who cares? You figure things out as you go along. Amari's been a baller when it comes to dealing with injuries all season long.
Yeah, I will say that might be a training staff question. Is there a reason to give Amari an extra week after the bye to kind of get over the kind of nicks and problems that he's dealing with? In that case, I could maybe see that might be something to do, but in general, you don't pull one of your best weapons off the field when you are still just 6 games into the season. It's not like the Cowboys have anything locked up. It's not like we're talking about week 18 when the seedings are set and you're really looking at how to protect your starters. We're still in the heart of the season. There's still a lot of football to play. Yeah, the rest of the NFC East looks like they're all having their struggles, but let's wait and see if that holds up. Something could turn right for someone. Let's get some things really taken care of. Let's keep that pedal down on the floorboard. Let's not let off the gas at all. Let's keep looking to run up the score. Let's keep getting dominant victories out there if you have a chance. And then when you get into that inevitable close game where you've got to take it down to the wire, we're going to need the best players to make that happen. So, yeah, that would be something that would have to be done with a lot of caution. I want to see Amari and CD and Michael back on the field together and let Dak survey the field with that down there and probably gritting from ear to ear while he does so.
Tony, along these lines, I think there might be some Cowboys fans who are starting to get a little bit worried about the bye happening now, right? Like the train is rolling. I don't want to stop. I want the bye later in the season. I want that week off then, if injuries are taking their toll. It is always important to look at the mini bye. And so if we put the Cowboys upcoming schedule on the screen here, the Cowboys are at New England on Sunday. Again, Tony's going to be there. Then on bye. The mini bye comes after the Saints game. And what I'm talking about, in case you're unaware, the mini bye is your time off following your Thursday night football game if you are a normal NFL team. However, the Dallas Cowboys are not. The Cowboys host the Las Vegas Raiders on Thanksgiving, and 7 days later, so Thursday to Thursday, play the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome. So after that Saints game on Thursday night, they will have a mini bye until they travel to Washington to take on the football team. So, Tony, if we look at the season in kind of sections like that with checkpoints, so to speak. After the New England game, you get the bye. So you've got the Vikings game, the Broncos game, the Falcons game, the Chiefs game, the Raiders game, and the Saints game before that little stretch. And so that's 5 more games, right, that you've got to go through, 6 more, before you get to your next checkpoint, so to speak. And that's your last one. At that point, unless you're the number 1 seed in the NFC, and I know we have some lofty goals and expectations here, but maybe somebody's willing to say they expect that from the Cowboys. If you don't get that lone bye, you've got to go to Washington, to New York, Washington at home, Arizona, and then Philadelphia, and then start the playoffs. So I think that the bye is actually positioned at a solid point for the Cowboys. It's kind of divided their season into 3 stretches, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, when I looked at the schedule initially, I think we all kind of figured, or we kind of hoped based on what this team could be, it has gone how we thought it would, right? We thought Tampa Bay would be a battle, and then we would be able to kind of handle what stretch we're in now. I think the Patriots are going to be a tougher game than, most people think, but I love where the bye is. I think, get that bye week, get 2 weeks, because I think Minnesota is a tougher opponent than many people give them credit for. They have some weapons, right? They got Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. We're familiar with them. And if Dalvin Cook is healthy, they have some guys and some offensive weapons that can, go toe-to-toe with us a little bit. So I like the extra week to kind of prepare for the Vikings. Then you kind of look at, I feel Denver, you kind of look at it basically, not to go each game individually. I like the way the schedule sets up for us. You're talking about the mini bye. I think it really does work out. It breaks it down in sections, and to kind of the viewer's point, if Amari Cooper is healthy and, somewhat healthy, and he's out there, producing, playing football, I don't see really a reason to sit him. That's looking at this game, say like, well, we're so good, we don't need Amari Cooper out there, and I don't feel comfortable enough to say that. You know what I mean? In any situation, so. We haven't seen Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb together since week 1. And I want to see that. And I want to see it at every chance I can. And because then you really press the defense to say, how in the world do you stop us?
I think that's well said. Patrick says, with some laughing emojis, rest Amari Cooper. Wow, y'all are cocky. Yeah, that's I like the energy, to be very clear. But it does feel a little bit, whatever. And along those lines, and we have some other things to get to, and this isn't technically Cowboys related, but I did want to ask you about this. I didn't tell you this, in our preparation for this. I'm totally surprising you. Gentlemen, we have reached a point where the Dallas Cowboys are 4-1. This looks like it's going to be a very promising week for them with regards to the NFC East, the NFL's most storied division. The Washington football team has a pissed off Kansas City Chiefs team at home this week, and they are likely going to lose that game. The New York, not so good at football Giants, which is a joke I've used 1,000 times now, get the Los Angeles Rams at home, likely a loss for them as well. The Philadelphia Eagles play 2 days from now on Thursday Night Football against the defending world champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And gentlemen, because a lot of Cowboys fans getting a little bit too big for their britches are starting to say, you know what? I want that 1 seed. I think we can get there. We're going undefeated the rest of the way. I'm worried. I'm more worried, in fact, that Tampa is going to, be in the way when it comes to the 1 seed, and Philly is not going to be a threat in the NFC East. So, Tom, I go to you first. Who are you rooting for on Thursday night? Tampa Bay, for the purposes of really just utter joy, but also, establishing more room for error in the NFC East? Or are you to the point where you're actually considering rooting for the Eagles in the name of lowering the Buccaneers so that they are beneath the Cowboys when it comes to the potential top seed for the NFC when the season is over?
I could root for Tampa Bay to lose. I can never root for Philly to win.
Okay, sorry. So you're rooting for Tampa to win or lose, then is really the question.
I'm sorry. I still want to see the Cowboys keep their lead in the NFC East no matter what. So, yeah, I still have to go with I want to see Tampa Bay put the Eagles.
Watsamata disagrees, says, not again, your characterization, Tom, not rooting for the Eagles, but rooting against the Buccaneers.
I can respect that. I do have to admit that there's kind of a nagging little fear I have. And this will sound a little bit odd, but I'm almost worried that the Cowboys are going to lock up the NFC too quick and get into a long stretch of games where they're just playing for seeding, and they start thinking, well, maybe we don't need to worry about trying to go for that number one thing. Is it, do we want to start protecting our players? And to your earlier point, the bye actually wound up falling at an ideal time for the Cowboys because of the injury situations of the suspension. They're going to start seeing the reinforcements land big time after the bye. So, yeah, I like how the season wound up spacing out, like you said, but yeah, I'm torn. I got to admit I'm torn. I'm not going to be crushed if Philadelphia rises up, except for the fact that we're going to hear from the Eagles fans at full volume for 10 days over the fact that they beat the Buccaneers.
I can't get on board with this take. I understand where you're coming from. I also share your concern in an optimistic sense, Tom, that the Cowboys are going to lock up the NFC East too quickly. And I wrote about this in the offseason. 2/3 of all common NFC East games happen over the final 5 weeks of the season. Like there's like from now through December until December, there's like no NFC East games. And I don't mean just Cowboys. I mean, there's the next Cowboys NFC East game is December 11th or December 10th, something like that. I mean, so it is a long time from now. And so all these teams are going to play everybody else. And I don't know why the NFL scheduled it that way. The Washington football team, for anyone who's somehow unaware, has a 4-week stretch in December where they play Dallas, Philly. And in I guess a perfect world for television ratings, all teams are in the mix at that point in time. So you benefit from that. But that was a really dumb bet to make given, who the Cowboys are and the rest of the division is. And those games might be meaningless, to your point, Tom. I mean, the Cowboys, maybe half of them hold some like mathematical meaning. And maybe they'll be interesting because of draft positioning, but they really might not matter when it comes to who gets some caps and t-shirts come December. I do want to roll through some comments here. Tony Sturch says, we're 6 weeks in. There's plenty of football left. Let's bury the Eagles. Let's see here. Donnie says, I am rooting for Tampa Bay. The easiest way to the playoffs is through the division. Totally agree. You don't want to, again, I don't like this getting over your skis thing. Let's see here. G. Gagoot says, we can go for the Eagles till we're blue in the face. They won't be the Bucks. LOL. Caleb says, I don't see a way the Cowboys don't win the NFC East this year. Having the Bucks go down another game would be better. So the other side of that coin, Tony, where do you fall?
I'm to kind of put it, to kind of get you guys to understand how I am. I'm a 1 in the hand is worth more than 2 in the bush kind of person. So I want to win this division. And the way to do that is to win our football games and have the other divisional teams lose. I think a viewer said it earlier and kind of stole my thunder a little bit when I was reading it. There's going to be other teams that have a chance to beat the Buccaneers. We don't need to depend on the Philadelphia Eagles to do that.
Great point.
Let's bury the Eagles' chances this week. Let's make sure all NFC East teams lose, because based on that, minus us, by the way, but make sure all these other NFC East teams lose, because that's just another week that we can gain momentum or gain ground on all of them. And to you guys' point, I want the shirt. I want the cap as early as possible. I want NFC East champs as early as we can humanly possible. And then let's look up and see where we're at in the 1 seed ranking. And then we'll start rooting for teams.
The two things here. One, the Bucks aren't the only threat to the 1 seed for the Cowboys. So that's also why I don't subscribe to this logic. I mean, the Cardinals are there, the Rams are still there, Packers are still there. Like you're really, again, trying to play with life at this point in time. My second thing here is the meta take here, guys, is, well, I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'm not saying I feel this way, but the take is I'm rooting for the Eagles because I want the 1 seed from the Bucks, and I want the Eagles to have a worse draft pick. That's the meta take, right? Like now you're really, trying to get crazy. But yeah, I'm rooting for the Buccaneers. I hope they win by 50. I mean, I want to see Philly. I want to see Philly just suffer for a week and a half and just be miserable from a sports perspective, because that's the worst. I mean, we all know that, having lost the season opener, and I mentioned it 1,000 times, the Friday after when everything broke, that time from the Bucks loss to the Chargers game took forever. And that will be the case for the Philadelphia Eagles, certainly, if they do lose this game, when they lose this game on Thursday night. Tom, you wanted to talk about this, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it up because you're the man, and I think you're awesome. Dalton Schultz has been playing out of his mind this season. He is literally one of the best tight ends in the NFL. And, he doesn't have the pizzazz that your Travis Kelce's and George Kittle's get, but he is incredible. The way I'm framing this to you, Tom, and this is, again, a 2022 issue, but something to be thinking about. Dalton Schultz is in a contract year with the Dallas Cowboys right now. He's going to be a free agent in the offseason. Is he a priority for you? Is this I'll worry about this when we get there situation? Or are you already worried you want Dalton Schultz on the Cowboys for the long term?
I see right now, at least from my perspective, that Dalton Schultz is starting to become the safety blanket for Dak Prescott. That's one of the reasons why he's doing so much. I think when Dak goes into the scramble drill, Dalton is the guy he's looking for, because he knows he's going to be there. Schultz has had a little bit of trouble with drops and a little bit of ball security, but outside of that, he is looking, the combination Dak to Dalton is looking eerily reminiscent of Tony to Jason. And I think he's that valuable to the team. I don't know.
Goosebumps, Tom. People are feeling it right now. Goosebumps.
Yeah, I'm not elevating Dalton to the level of prime Jason Witten yet, but he is showing some potential in that direction that I never thought he would have. And I think that they need to talk to Dak about this. And I think on the Cowboys, they will bring him into that conversation, because the Cowboys understand what that franchise quarterback means, and surrounding him with the tools he wants out there on the field. And so I think that they really need to think about going ahead, and that might be the first contract move they need to make between now and next offseason is really look at seeing if they can get him in an extension before his price starts to skyrocket. Because if he hits free agency and he keeps putting up the kinds of performances he has so far, there's going to be some bidding going on.
So, Tom, our viewers, our loyal viewers, have inspired a question that I'm going to throw Tony's way. So, this is Tom's fault. We're going to play a game. You can only keep one, Tony. Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, or Randy Gregory.
Oof. For me,
let us know if you're with us live. Please let us know your thoughts as well. But Tony, you're the one that has to answer this, and if you're wrong, everybody's going to hate you. No pressure.
Right. I can take throw those arrows my way. For me, it's honestly not that hard of an answer. If Randy Gregory is what we think he is, I think that's an easy answer. The way the defensive end position is valued, and the way it's very hard to find defensive ends, or the draft capital, or the free agent signing it takes. We have Randy Gregory here. If he is what we think he is, and we see the motor he's playing with, for me, it's 100% Randy.
DeLunatic has the best answer. Sorry, Tony. Says premier spot. It's easier to find a tight end or a wide receiver. That's no disrespect to Dalton Schultz or Michael Gallup. It will hurt. Like, don't get me wrong, Tom. When we write the post up, when we make all the graphics and have the conversation, Dalton Schultz is signed with the Minnesota Vikings. Michael Gallup is headed to the Los Angeles Chargers or Baltimore Ravens, whatever it is. It will hurt. But having Randy Gregory on this team is going to be a really, really nice consolation prize.
Oh, yeah. And, I came into this year figuring that Michael Gallup was going to hit free agency and go somewhere else, just because
sorry, Tom, on that note, we talked about this then. The calf strain may have impacted that. I mean, he's obviously not going to be able to put together a full regular season resume. He's got an incredible resume that speaks for itself, but there is a world where he comes back on a 1-year deal to get the full complement of a full regular season to go hit the market again in 2023. But sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, that is a possibility, but I think he's going to put together a strong enough last 11 games of the season. I have to stop and do the math in my head with this 17-game season now. It's not as automatic. But I think he's going to put together enough of a body of work over that final part of the season after the bye that he's still going to find that market out there and be able to get his payday out of that. And I think I've got a lot more faith in being able to go out and find a tight end to replace Dalton Schultz than I do in finding a defensive end to replace Randy Gregory. Cowboys may have Blake Jarwin. He may come along and actually be able to be what we thought he was going to be before he got hurt last year. So, I just would have to go with Randy Gregory as the one of that trio I would have to stick with.
Prior to the injury, did we not feel this way that Sean McKeon could step into the role at some point and be the number 2? I mean, it's a big shoes to fill, but we felt positive about Sean McKeon before the injury.
So that's a great point, Tony. I am amending the question because I am playing the Truman Show dude. I don't know what his name is. So Tony, I will throw this to you first. And everyone watching, I'm throwing it to you as well. You can only keep 2. Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, Randy Gregory, and Leighton Vander Esch. You can only keep 2 of these.
For me, it's Randy Gregory easy. And then I love the 3-headed monster of Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and Amari Cooper. Now, I know that, if we can get Cedric
let you, Tony, in this hypothetical, you get Cedric Wilson. If you let Michael Gallup walk, okay. I'll just that is an understood in this hypothetical. You can let Michael Gallup walk and keep Cedric Wilson if you want to do that.
And in that instance, give me Dalton Schultz, right? Because if we lose Michael Gallup, and trust me, I think Cedric Wilson is great at what he does. I think Michael Gallup is a better football player, and I think most would agree with that. So if you're going to lose Michael Gallup and take a slight tick of a downgrade at that wide receiver 3 position, I would like to keep Dalton Schultz in the fold in that instance. So Dalton Schultz and Randy Gregory for me is the 2.
Tom, I think to answer the question, since nobody cared to ask, I think it might be for me, Randy and Leighton Vander Esch. I want that depth at linebacker. I really do. I mean, if you can, like, if we're living in the world, and again, it's hypothetical right now, but if we're living in the world of 1-year deals, if Leighton wants to come back and, because at that point, if we're entering 2020, there's no threat at Jalen, there's no mix up, there's second year in Dan Quinn's defense. He's going to want to win 2 Super Bowls in a row. You know what I mean? Like, to set himself up for 2023. I mean, I think tight end is an easier position to find. I'm not trying at all to take away from Dalton Schultz or Michael Gallup, but the other thing is, like, those positions are dependent on Dak Prescott. So I have that solved. You know what I mean? So, like, I would honestly rather just keep this defense playing so well, and the floor of it, the depth of it, like we've talked about so far today, is so valuable that I might want to keep Gregory. And Gregory is the one. We're all aware of this. So Leighton Vander Esch might be the second one for me, but I don't know how you feel, Tom.
Well, Jabril Cox plays into that equation.
Sure.
And he's already,
I'll take 3 linebackers, though. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. But once again, can you find a linebacker easier than you can find a tight end or a wide receiver? That's an open question. And, I just like what I saw from Cox at his limited play. And I think that McCarthy has already indicated we're going to see him more on third downs, because he's proven that if you're trying to get that 1 yard you need to get a first down, you don't want to go up against him, or you're liable to be staggering off the field. Sorry about that joke, because that was obviously a case where the quarterback went in with a bad angle and put himself at risk. But I would still want to keep. I think I would want to keep Dalton Schultz and Randy Gregory out of the foursome. That's just the way I'm leaning.
So, Tom, we have had a question inspired by a viewer. I'm going to take Randy Gregory's name off of this, because we're all understanding that he is the one. So the question from Watsamata, our friend, says, RJ, add Connor Williams to this discussion. So, Tom, I'm going to you first now. You got to make the hard choice. You can only keep 2. Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, Leighton Vander Esch, or Connor Williams. Is Connor in the mix at all for you? Or is he at least is his ceiling third, I guess, in this conversation?
No, I'm not getting rid of Connor Williams. I don't want to mess with the offensive line the way it's going. When you've got established depth at tackle now with Terrence Steele, you've got established depth with Connor McGovern along the interior of the offensive line, maybe even at center now that he's been working a little bit at that. Yeah, I ain't going to mess with this offensive line, because I think that is the foundation of any offense. And right now the Cowboys have an incredibly solid foundation up front.
Tony, is Connor in your top 2 here, top 3, or is he where is he for you here?
For me, it's just going to come down to numbers. What is Connor Williams going to demand on the open market? Because
sure,
I like him in the fold. You know what I mean? As far as Connor Williams goes, he's in there. But if the number was too high and the team just feels a little uncomfortable paying them that money, I'm okay with Connor McGovern being there. And let's try to, we're going to use the draft to possibly draft some offensive linemen and see what they have.
You need a center. That's what you need to draft.
Need a center.
I think of these 4, sorry, Tony, Connor might be the most financially obtainable, because Gallup's going to command elite money. We all know that. Schultz, especially if he continues this season, there might be a team who's willing to overpay him, even past the point that the Cowboys are comfortable doing so. And I think Leighton is going to want that payday, because Leighton wants a comeback opportunity, had his 5th-year option declined. Obviously, the Cowboys drafted Micah, et cetera. Moving on. Connor might be the guy who you can kind of, sneak offer and sneak get back in an interesting, way like that. It's
let me pose this question too.
Okay.
If you don't mind. So if they
never mind.
So if they keep Connor McGovern, if they keep Connor Williams in the fold, what does that say about Connor McGovern? Because I don't think after year 3, what everybody views him as and where they see his potential, that he's going to be another backup next year, right? Where they find him in there.
Well, he's the starting fullback now. So what's your problem?
That's a good point. The offensive line, I think it could look very different next year as a whole. Like, there's a chance they move on from Lyle Collins, right? There's a chance Terrence Steele is the starting right tackle next year. It's and Watson brings this up. What if Connor Williams costs $10 million a year? How much is too much? Gallup might, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there is a point where it becomes too much, but Connor, I think, is the one that, like it's not going to reach that price. Michael Gallup will reach that price. Schultz might, relative to what the Cowboys are willing to pay. I mean, you're always looking ahead. Soon enough, Trayvon's going to have to get paid. Like that's how quickly time moves in the NFL. And so, it is. Caleb, by the way, brings up the second problem is where will our draft pick fall this year? That may play into who we could keep. I mean, there's not a lot of people available with 32nd overall pick, to be fair. But Tom and everybody else, you also wanted to talk about this. When is the next foreseeable loss for the Cowboys? That's the question. All right. Now, let's all admit to stay calm because the Dallas Cowboys are going to lose another game, people. It will happen. That's just football. That's life in the NFL. So we're looking for the next loss. We're hopeful that we're wrong. We're hopeful there are no more. But here is the schedule. Tom, when is it in your opinion? Cowboys 22, by the way, said week 17. I think you meant 18. Remember, things have changed in the NFL. Now there's 17, games of the regular season. So
no, he's saying week 17. That's what.
He's being serious. I thought the point was like Cowboys will have locked up the bye by then. Yeah. They'll be red. That'll be Cooper Rush. Maybe Ben DiNucci gets promoted for that game. I mean,
he's pointing at the Cardinals. That is the next that I would say likely loss.
You're willing to blow past the Chiefs, Tom.
No, I'm not. Let me finish my thought there, RJ. I was saying that's the next likely. Now, you're saying foreseeable. It depends on how well the Chiefs rebound. I think they could be that because, I don't see Atlanta getting turned around. I don't think Denver is for real. I think Minnesota is a beatable team, and I think New England is not New England as we have come to know them. So, the Chiefs is the next one I'd really be looking at, and that depends on what happens in the intervening weeks because some things have not been going so well for the Chiefs lately. So, when we were looking at this schedule back before the start of the season, it looked more formidable than it does now.
See, I disagree with that. Not that you're wrong, Tom, but I mean, it looked tough in the first 2 weeks, right? You got Tampa and the Chargers, and every week the Cowboys win against the Chargers continues to look better and better and better. But every week I tweet out the Cowboys' remaining schedule by opposing quarterback, and that was why it did not look intimidating to me. Yeah. You had this stretch of Jalen Hurts, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones. At the time we thought maybe it would be Cam Newton for the Patriots, but it's obviously Mac Jones. Kirk Cousins is, I still think, better than people want to give him credit for, but I get the jokes and the memes, etc. After that, Teddy Bridgewater. Is it Drew Lock? Obviously it's Teddy now, but Drew has obviously played. Then it's Matt Ryan, who I know he had a nice game last week against the Jets in London, but I'm still not sold on the Falcons as a whole. And then you have Mahomes and Derek Carr. That's probably your toughest back-to-back stretch outside of the first 2 games of the season. And Tony, the Cowboys got rid of their 2 most difficult games of the year during weeks 1 and 2, which is why this. Again, Tom, not to I 100% disagree with Tom, but this was somewhat predictable. So how far does this ride go?
I mean, just kind of put it out there. Like we said, Arizona, Kansas City on face value looks like to be some of the tougher competition we have. So you kind of look at your eyes are drawn to those 2 at first. But as it comes to week 17, Arizona, who knows what we have already locked up at that point, right? And who knows if anybody's even playing week 17, the division's probably locked up. Maybe we've already, clinched the 1 seed. Maybe the 1 seed's too far out of reach. And then, so now you're looking at a different seed position, but that's way down the line. But maybe this is me living because I live 30 minutes away from the stadium, but the New England game, I do not under any circumstances want to look past it. Not because I think they're on the same talent level as us, not because I don't think that we couldn't put up a 40 burger on them, but it's the fact that it's going to be a well-coached team and a coach that exposes weaknesses and a coach that knows how to play against. I mean, I've been to every Cowboys Patriots game in my lifetime. I've been to every single one except for the Marion Barber run, and I have not seen them win a game yet. So whenever I see the Patriots, I get a little queasy. If we go in there and we put up 30, 40 points on this team and take care of business like we should, because we are a more talented team, this isn't the Patriots of old. But if we see that, I'll feel much better about this team as a whole moving forward and how the direction of it. But I would say, like I said, the New England team it's a game I'm not going to look past. But after that, then you're kind of like you said, you're looking at Kansas City. The Raiders have been going through some stuff, but the Raiders have some talent. So there are the games on the schedule. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, like you said before. Don't put your head over the skis, so to speak.
Yeah. Can I
go ahead, Tom.
Can I just ask a question that kind of relates to this? You may be headed for this, but assuming we don't have major health problems, what's the floor for Dallas's win total this year? What is it?
This was a question I asked on the postgame show, and I said I've phrased it as what's your expectation now? Because it's changed, right? Like our expectation for the season has been altered from what it was in March, in June, in August. I think looking at the floor, I think the ones you can circle without a doubt. There are 4 division games left. They win 3 of them. I think it's responsible, maybe not fair, but it's responsible to a lot for a divisional loss. They're always difficult. So you take 3 of those wins, 3 of those games as wins. I think they beat Denver and Atlanta, so that's 5. I mean, I think they win 1 of Kansas City, Vegas. I know the Raiders have a lot going on, so that's 6. I mean, at the very least, that's 10 wins. 10 wins is like the lowest floor, I think, for them from and then you're talking about there's things you should do. Then there's things you should really do. But I think with sleepwalking, they should get to 10 wins is kind of how I feel, Tony.
I agree, and I would even take it one level. I've thought about this a few times, probably more than I should have over the last couple of weeks. I just see the absolute floor being 11-6. I mean, if you look at the schedule, right? So we got 1 loss. Let's just say they lose all the games that are iffy. Let's say they lose to Kansas City. Let's say they lose to Arizona. So that puts them at 3 losses, right? Then let's say because Washington always plays us tough and the defense will play, we split that. So that's 4 losses there. I mean, then you're kind of looking at, who are we looking at? Possibly losing to the Raiders. I feel better about the Raiders now compared to everything that's been going on. So I feel a little better about that game. But if we even give them that, now we're talking that's 5 losses there. So I'm a game more optimistic that the floor is 11-6, and that'll win the division. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's the floor.
Tom, what's your floor, since this is your question? Tom, you're muted. I don't know what happened on your end, but
that's me being asleep at the switch. That's I would have to say I'm with Tony at it being 11. I'm tempted to go with 12, but yeah, I'm kind of keeping that in my pocket, is that things can go wrong, the unexpected can happen. There might be some complacency set in at an odd moment or two. So yeah, I think 11 right now is probably.
That's really exciting. I mean, obviously, there were a lot of us that thought that was possible, and I think what continues to make us feel better is that they're doing the things that they should do. It's not just that they're winning. It's how they're winning. It's the positive signs we're seeing. I did want to bring up this question. Let's see. I'm finding it right now. RB Nightmare, aka Micah Parsons. How do y'all feel about the whole coaching staff after 5 games? I don't know how you're not, enormously pleased. I mean, I don't know how, I don't know what you're upset about if you're a Cowboys fan, like coaching staff, players, game plan. I don't know, maybe their devotion to Greg Zuerlein, but even that has kind of stabilized, over the course of the season. So it is what it is. Tony, we have a super chat from Gerardo. Thank you very much. We appreciate super chats always around here. And this speaks to the whole team as a whole. But is it sustainable for Zeke to keep playing at this level? He plays very physical. I do think that Zeke's play is kind of emblematic of this lightning it feels like the Cowboys have caught. You know what I mean? Because they're pulling off this really amazing thing. Do you think it is sustainable? And obviously, any injury to any NFL team can massively affect a lot of different things, as we well know. But is this sustainable?
I think this current version of Zeke, right? The way they're using him this year, the way they're giving Tony Pollard, his touches. If you asked me if, 300 touches or whatever Zeke that was, 2016, that wasn't sustainable. That was more projection of a team that was going to just pound a running back into the ground. Ezekiel Elliott he's fresher, he's motivated, he is just. They're using them better as a whole, and I think Tony Pollard is a big part of that. Having a running back behind you that could be a one anywhere, a guy that is a problem in his own right, is only going to extend Ezekiel Elliott. And instead of worrying about who's number one, let's just enjoy the fact that they're both outstanding football players.
Tom, I did want to mention along these lines, Cowboys 22 says this team is 4-1 without D-Law, Gallimore, Gallup, and Lyle, 4 very good players. If we remove Gallimore from that mix, they are actually 4-0 because they are 4-0 since Tank, Michael Gallup, and Lyle were taken away from them for the time being. And so that's why I think it's fair to wonder legitimately if this is sustainable, because what they're doing in the face of a lot of adversity. And that's not been the case with this team for a long time.
Yeah, and it's almost a built-in replacement for future problems in a lot of places. They all of a sudden they've got, you suddenly have to come up with another defensive end, and we have to settle for DeMarcus Lawrence. Oh, poor that's incredible to have that level of talent coming back when the team is rolling. Normally we're looking at who's going to come back and save the season or keep us from going too far downhill. That's not this year. It is literally a place I don't know how to feel, because I don't remember ever being here like this.
It's awesome. But I mean, what can we say? It's awesome, which makes these conversations, these discussions, these times all the more fun. We appreciate everyone who joins us for these roundtables. We do these every single Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time. You can join us live on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We will podcast them for you as well on the Blogging the Boys Podcast Network. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. Subscribe to our podcast network. If you are a podcast listener, beyond subscribing, leave a rating, write a review. Those things really help us out and go a long way. We are currently the top Dallas Cowboys podcast network throughout all of Apple Podcasts, which is very, very, very cool. Everybody works hard around here. Boys, it's been fun. You said it all. We did it all. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time.